3, 2, 1,
Mark.
That was a little bit arrhythmic, so I hope that worked.
I think I got it.
Is arrhythmic the right word? You gave me an eyebrow raise when I said that. Arrhythmic.
Yeah, it's just a fancy word.
I get all my fancy words from all the books I do not read.
That's going to get like a real eyebrow raise for me, because that is a paradox, maybe?
I don't read anything. I get all fancy words from listening.
Okay.
And if I'm ever tasked with spelling that fancy word that I've just spoken, it's very difficult because I can't spell these words. I don't recognize them.
See, once again, we keep the universe in balance, because I get my fancy words from reading, but I never hear them spoken. So when I say them, sometimes I pronounce them wrong and sound like a moron, and I get made fun of, but that's okay.
Yes. When you pay homage to something.
Yeah. Homage.
Yeah. All right. Welcome to Analog Stick, a PlayStation 2 podcast, the podcast where every month we normally do a deep dive on a PS2 title, covering the game's history, blah, 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 blah. Releasing a new episode on the 2nd of every month. Oh, this is all like fake stuff. We're about to talk about all this.
We're about to throw that out the window.
We're about to throw some of this stuff out the window.
Spoilers.
Please support the podcast. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, podcast platforms, Analog Stick. Why did I even do the intro? I feel like the past 2 podcasts, it's just been so mutilated that it's not even worth doing. Anyway, I'm here. My name's Clayton. This is Morgan.
Hi.
That's Morgan.
I'm also here.
Yep. We're tuning. I was about to say tuning in. You're tuning into this, but we're going to put out this podcast just as a kind of like update. We don't have a game to play right now. We're going to talk about why that is and the future of the podcast. It makes it sound dire. It's not that dire. We're just really, I would say that we're very busy right now. Both me and Morgan coincidentally have a lot of career stuff going on. That is, it's throwing a wrench in the whole like outside of work activities and hobbies and pursuits thing. So I think for the time being, we're going to switch away from our monthly release cadence and then just kind of put out things as we can. So it may take a while, but we will still be putting out garbage for your ear holes. Yeah, I don't know. Morgan, you got anything to say?
No.
This feels unfair because we just talked about all this before we recorded in order to keep this video brief. I
would say it's a rough time of the year because we are entering summer, which is very busy for a lot of people. Just because I think we have both had, not to get too personal. You just said career stuff, but I like to be a little bit more personal. I would say we've both been dealing with burnout and maybe in some cases like mental health stuff. I know I've had like some health stuff on my end that has made it hard to commit to extra things, and this podcast is one of those extra things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you may be surprised to hear this, listeners, to our like 100 subscriber YouTube channel. This is not our full-time job. I know this is hard to believe. But yeah, this is like a fun side thing for us that sometimes is like somewhat demanding. At least I try to make it demanding. I don't want to half-ass it too much, you know? It takes a lot to play a game, especially like a...
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a good amount of work that goes into that. And also, it's kind of hard to just schedule out time to play a Kingdom Hearts just inside of a month. So
right. So I guess while we're on that topic, let's talk about that and talk about why trying to fit these games into the schedule that we've been trying to fit them in isn't working for you specifically. I know that's something we talked about before we started recording, but
it's funny because I remember initially, like whenever we started the podcast, I don't know if I ever voiced it to you. We didn't really have a plan. We were just kind of fucking around. But in my head, I was like, this is going to be a weekly thing because podcasts are weekly.
There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way we could ever do that.
Cover one game a week. That's insane. And there are podcasts that like operate in that way, but it requires them to like not really play the game. And I don't like that. Like, I don't like coming at a game from that way because I like that our podcasts are like one and done. We are like playing the game once and that is it. We're discussing it. We're immortalizing it in our show. That's it. That's the one time we're playing this thing. And I like to like get everything that I want out of it just as, you know, an enjoyer of games. And I feel like it helps the podcast, but also it's just like a me thing. It's like, you know, this is probably, I gotta be honest, maybe the only time in my life I'm ever gonna play Final Fantasy X. And I kind of want to just like get the full thing out of it. I don't know. And I feel like Final Fantasy X is a good example of like a situation where if you listen to that episode, I didn't get to finish the game. I made it all the way to the final like boss basically and was like underleveled and was like, well, I can't do this and we're out of time. So
right. It's doing both you and the game a disservice.
I'd say so because it kind of, you know, it can taint the discussion around the game if it's too rushed. That's like 100% happened where I like find a game more annoying because I'm trying to like force myself to complete it.
That's happened to me like every episode, not gonna lie.
That happened like literally like, and sometimes it turns itself around. Like once I get close to the end, I'm like, oh, the end is in sight so I can enjoy this. I think like Naruto was kind of like that where I was like, this is fucking bullshit the whole time. And then like I got towards the end, I'm like, oh, you know, it's okay now. Now that I don't have like, now that I only have 1 hour ahead of me as opposed to like 10 or something. So yeah, there's like a part of that that's like not sitting right in like the formula that makes up the show. I also wouldn't mind like having more time to actually put in some effort into like the video version of stuff. Do more research. That's like a segment of the show that's been like completely neutered, I feel like, is discussing like development history and stuff like that, or whatever there is to discuss around like the creation of the game. And I don't know. I'd like to give the episodes more time to breathe. And I don't know. I mean, is it a negative for the show? Potentially, to like switch off of a month, like a predictable release schedule. I feel like monthly is already barely a thing anyway. Like, it's definitely, I feel like ill-advised if you're creating a podcast or a show or something to do something that spaced out.
The algorithm demands consistency.
It don't like it. Yeah. But I feel like for our show, I don't know. I like making something that I can be proud of, and I feel like I'm not overly proud of like, I like them. I feel like they're great as podcasts, but I kind of want a little bit more out of them. I don't know. It's difficult, and I don't feel like I have like the exact vision in mind, but basically, we're going to be playing around with the format a little bit more, and the release schedule is going to be not very consistent for that reason.
Yes.
Morgan, why don't you tell us about a switch up in scope that may be headed towards this podcast?
Yeah. So in I guess in parallel with the discussions we've been having about, okay, this schedule, at least for right now, is not sustainable for us as human beings and also for our enjoyment in making the podcast. What other things can we do to maybe alleviate some of this burnout and some of this, I don't know, negative feelings? Which, to be fair, when I say negative feelings, I don't mean like I am not like sitting here seething every day. Like, I fucking hate this podcast. I hate what we made. I hate our audience. Like, no. This has honestly only brought me like joy.
I think that's how I feel too. And that's why it was like, this whole thing is like kind of weighed on me for like a month almost. Cause the beach episode was also kind of like a Band-Aid fix for us not having any time. But like, I don't know, there was a time where I was like, is it time to just like stop this? Like, and that like really kind of like upset me. I'm like, I do like it. And I like that there's like some goobers out there that listen to it.
Yeah.
So like, I don't really want to do that, but
right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So to sort of like help alleviate and maybe find some of that like passion and excitement back a little bit.
Mhm.
We've talked about expanding the scope of the podcast. Obviously we'll still be Analog Shtick. That's our brand.
That's our brand.
That's our brand. And like our home base is the PS2. I would say that's pretty peak nostalgia for both of us. I don't think that would change.
I feel like, yeah, like if there's like, I don't even know, I was going to say like a solar system or something, but like, I feel like this is where we splinter off. Like the newer we go, the more uncommon that'll be. And the older we go, the more uncommon that'll be. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like our center, our central.
Yeah,
I don't know what you would call that. Yes. On the bell curve.
At the bell curve.
This is the peak of the bell curve. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so we talked about expanding the scope of the podcast, and what that means is instead of focusing solely on the PS2 North American library, we would deviate a little bit, include some PS1, include some even like older than PS1 stuff, potentially some N64, some SNES maybe.
Gonna play fucking Pong on this podcast.
Yeah. I don't think I can talk about Pong for an hour.
I think we can talk about other things
and
for
then
an hour.
And then slap Pong on the title of the episode. And we can talk about Pong
on there. That'll get views.
Yeah. Sure. Anyway, but that also includes newer stuff. So like stuff on the PS3, Xbox 360, stuff like that. Stuff from the same era as the PS2 that's not in the PS2 library. So GameCube, Xbox, all we have the gaming world at our fingertips.
I gotta say,
we haven't been touching it, and I need to get my fingers all over it.
Start touching. Yeah. Part of this comes from a little bit of a selfish point of view, because it's like, based on like my personal schedule, there's a healthy amount of times where like the only game and time I got needs to be devoted to the podcast game that we're discussing. I can't, it's hard for me to balance like two games, it feels like, anymore. Which was, I feel like, the ideal for me, but I don't know. And because of that, I basically want to expand it to more options. So it's like, I'm not stuck on one generation while I got all these other consoles staring at me saying, play me, please. Why'd you spend so much money on me if you're not going to play me?
The money, the cable management, the pristine cart of consoles that you have. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I gotta play these suckers. So I'm changing the whole podcast so I can do that.
Also, from where I'm coming from with this change, I'm sure people who've like listened to us to our like 5-hour long episodes have probably figured out about me that I am very drawn to games with like complex narratives and like really interesting stories to tell. And there are a lot of franchises that have, you know, like 1 or 2 entries on the PS2, but the rest of the franchise exists on like other consoles. Like Kingdom Hearts, for example, we got a comment on our Kingdom Hearts YouTube video where it's like, oh, are you guys going to play the rest of Kingdom Hearts? And it's like, well, we would be limited to 1, 2, and then I think
Rechain of Memories.
Yeah, Rechain of Memories, and that would be it. And it's like, well, that kind of does the franchise a disservice, because there's so much more story and stuff that we couldn't cover. And things like, you know, Silent Hill, like the first Silent Hill is on the PS1, we wouldn't be able to touch that. So I think it would do those franchises a better, it would pay better tribute to them to cover them in their entirety. So,
I agree. And it kind of like the episodes that we have covered things, I think like Crash Wrath of Cortex was an example where it's like, oh, we have to dedicate part of the podcast to covering the original games, which is a little wonky. Like, it'd be nice if we could just cover the games instead of having to like cover the the games prior to the game we're covering or the games past the game that we're covering, like all together in one episode.
For sure.
And also, I will say, to like the concept of like, so the concept of like having a podcast focuses solely on the PS2. It's like, I think me and Morgan, if you're to take I don't know if the PS2 is my favorite console. It's definitely up there, but I feel like if you're to take the Venn diagram of me and Morgan, the favorite console there is probably the PS2. So that's kind of what that came from. And also, like, I'd been listening to a couple like podcasts and shows that focus specifically on one console, and I thought that concept was cool, but I think that there's a problem with focusing specifically on the PS2, in that I feel like it's huge install base and like huge, like, I don't know, amount of titles kind of leads to it not having as much of an identity as some things like the GameCube or the Game Boy, or things with like fewer games released for them and like a smaller community. Like if you look at the top selling like PS2 games, you're going to get like a weird smattering of like Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo, ATV Off-Road Fury. It's like it's like a lot, and also a lot of stuff that like didn't sell like Nintendo numbers on stuff. Like it didn't have like the install base or the attachment rate that a lot of Nintendo titles have. That kind of like, there's like pillar games that kind of create the feel of the console, and I feel like PS2 has like a pretty mixed feel because of kind of the purpose it serves in the industry, which is kind of like a catch-all for like adults, kids, of people with very like varying tastes and stuff like that. Like even the PS1, I gotta be honest, felt like it had more of a identity, I guess, as like maybe like a JRPG machine or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. The PS2, I feel like I feel like that's the beginning. I think even the PS3 had more of an identity, which is weird to say, but I feel like that's when like Sony first party was really ramping up and kind of focusing on like the Sad Dad simulator and stuff like that.
Yeah, Sad Dads and brown. The brown color palette.
The color brown. But yeah, I don't know. And maybe that's like too harsh to say that the PS2 doesn't have like an identity. I feel like it does, but I feel like it has a lot of identities, I guess. And that kind of makes it less cohesive as like we're going to focus just on this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. I want to branch out to those Sad Dad simulators. I don't know.
And I want to branch out to Zelda and more Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, I know. I want to talk about Pokemon. Like we got so much shit to talk on Pokemon, and we gotta have a outlet for that. God damn it. I don't know. And it's just like, I don't know, stuff like gets my attention, and it's like, I would like to talk about this in a deeper way. That'd be fun. I don't know.
Also with the Fallout show coming out, I would love any excuse I can get to talk about Fallout. And that's
New Vegas.
Yeah, talk about New Vegas. I would love to talk about classic Fallout. Like,
I'd be down to try it. I don't know if we'll stick with it.
Think our Gen Z brains would be able to.
No.
Yeah, I think we would struggle quite a bit, but.
Mm-hmm. So okay, we talked about like widening the scope.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I would like to limit it to games that have like mostly had the conversation around them die. Like I wouldn't want to play anything too new is kind of where I'm at personally. And maybe we can figure out a way to make this work, but I feel like trying to play a game that is like ever changing is maybe not something we should, or maybe, I don't know, maybe something we'd have to cover in a special way. Like it'd be hard to cover Minecraft or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't see myself having that would be very hard to pin down.
Yeah, because it's like we cover it and then it's like, oh, there's a new update. It's like, oh.
Right, and then everything becomes irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know. Maybe there's like a way to make that work, covering a specific version, a notable version, like, I don't know, the first like of full release. I don't know. Basically, it'd have to be different. And like multiplayer games are, I think, maybe off the table. I'm not sure though.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll see.
But not necessarily co-op games though.
Co-op games? That's doable. We can figure that out.
Yeah. I was going to say something and I totally forgot. I know what I was going to say. For people who have requested specific titles, like, oh, you guys are covering PS2. When are you guys going to cover this game? Because like it's one of my favorites. It's or like a situation where it's like, oh, this is a hidden gem. You guys need to cover this. Those are still in my heart, are still being taken into consideration.
Listen, Destroy All Humans is still on the list. I swear.
And Psychonauts.
I swear. We're going to get to it. Psychonauts too?
Yep.
Yeah.
But if anyone has, I guess, but also this is an opportunity where we have like a completely open floor now where it's like, hey, if you know of like a hidden gem that's like on the PS1 or like at the GameCube, like some other like random console, it's like, can you guys please talk about this game? Because it's been living in my head rent free and I need other people to know about it. Please email us at analogstickmail@gmail.com and let us know. Or leave a comment. We'll probably find it.
Leave a Spotify comment.
Yeah.
Do anything. Just yell really
send
loud.
Send us a carrier pigeon.
Yeah.
It'll fly into my window. I'll be like, oh, another one. Okay.
Oh, man. I don't know. I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm much more content in my heart with this being like the new way forward, at least for now. I feel like I'd like to go back to a schedule, but I'd like for our lives to be more settled before we do that, because I mean, I just like don't feel like foolishly I was like, yep, I'm settled, everything's good. And then I started living for a little bit and it's like, man, everything is still not settled. We might have kids at some point. There's that whole thing too. So instead of just forcing the podcast to be so rigid that eventually it breaks whenever it's under too much tension, we'll keep things flexible. You know, if we have to switch off like a schedule and just kind of like put it on pause for a little bit, we will do that. I feel like that's preferable to going away completely. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Okay. I think one last thing that I want to posit to the audience. And Clayton, I know you said you didn't want to do any editing, and I'm sorry. But I might make you edit this because if this comes out wrong and if this sounds like a horrendous idea, then never mind. But with the inconsistent schedule of the podcast, I guess I want to put out some feelers and see if there would be any interest in getting maybe some inconsistent gameplay, or I guess like let's play content from me or possibly from Clayton, whoever has time, just like as it's available to be posted.
I see what you're saying.
If there's like an interest in like you know, like a game that like we're very nostalgic for, that's like not a huge like not super taxing on our minds because we're so familiar with it. And if you just like want to like listen to us like play the game and like jabber about like what we think about the game and stuff like that as we play it, I think that would be another easy form of I guess content that we could probably work out.
There definitely is I feel like, I don't know, the way that I kind of view our audience is like there are like core audience members who like us as people, and then there is like the masses who kind of come in with like a big game or something like that,
right?
Or Donald Duck going quackers for some reason, like, and that's more of a YouTube thing. Like YouTube numbers are way all over the place and have the possibility for being significantly higher than like podcast platforms, but podcast platforms are like way more consistent, which leads me to believe that it's like people who like opt in to liking us and stuff. I feel like there's less discoverability on like podcast platforms anyway, so I feel like it's more intentional than like Spotify just showing you, hey, listen to this podcast and 1,000 people clicking on it or something like that.
Right.
So, but I like your idea because, you know, there's other avenues of content I'd like to explore for funsies.
Yeah.
And maybe being less consistent with the podcast will make that more doable. I don't know.
Right. Well, and like I know like we're both in a similar spot in our lives, but also like some weeks I have way more free time than others. And so I would just like to, I guess, sort of like provide an option for people
Mhm.
who because like a lot of the really sweet comments we get are about like, oh, this is like a cozy podcast. It's like a cozy thing for them. It's like, oh well, if you want like cozy, I always feel super cozy when I play like Sly Cooper or something. So like if you want to come hang out while I play Sly Cooper,
Mhm.
go for it, you know?
Yeah, I like that idea. Oh, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something important. I swear I was gonna say something important. Oh my god, what was I gonna say?
Does it have to do with cozy?
No, I was gonna make a joke and say cozy's big right now, but that wasn't even that funny, so I kept it to myself. Fuck, I don't know what I was gonna say. But yeah, that's like. Go ahead.
Sorry. One thing, I know we literally just gave the Koji spiel. One thing that I might be willing to endure for entertainment purposes is like posting the like actual like live reactions to like the horror games that we cover. Because I am a big chicken.
Mm-hmm. I need to put an asterisk on all this because none of this is a commitment.
Yeah, this is happening. This is happening live. This is off the cuff.
None of the things we're saying is a commitment. In fact, Morgan, I gotta be honest, some of this maybe should be an off-air discussion.
Okay. Well, that's why I said I'm sorry. I know you didn't want to edit anything. The horror thing.
No, I'm gonna leave it in. This is live actually right now.
Damn it! I was gonna say the horror thing. Let me take that back. But the cozy let's play, I can swing that.
If we were more geographically connected, I think it'd be easier to do some fun stuff like that.
Right.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like I had something fucking important to say. God damn. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll end it here. We're going way longer than I thought.
Yeah, you said 10 minutes. It's 30.
This is the issue with this podcast. Anyway, let's wrap it up. I just want to say thank you to anyone who's like actually like, you know, a fan of me and Morgan and the show and our little shit postings that we do basically.
Yes, you matter to us.
Thinly veiled research and thinly veiled in-depth discussions. Really just an excuse for us to rant about interior design. So thank you for watching. And
Gnostic lore and philosophy
Gnostic
and
deities, weird like fringe religions.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's actually just kind of like it's a big prank. You know, if you listen to the 4 hours of Kingdom Hearts or whatever it was, you got pranked. That's what that was.
A little bit. Maybe.
Anyway, thanks for watching.
Yep. Goodbye.
We'll see you when we see you.
Yep.
It's not you, it's me.